right, everyone, we are back doing chapter 2 right now. Make sure your cameras are on. Cameras on, please, everybody. Cameras on. All right, if you're watching on YouTube and you want to chime in and ask questions, you're free to do that in the live chat. Okay. Zoom users, students, if your cameras are not on, it does not count towards your hours. Just letting you guys know. All right, so we're going to start the actual class. Before it was just a brief intro into real estate, what to expect. Right now, we're going to go into basics or principles of real estate. So we're going to start with rights in real estate. Okay? Rights in real estate. So for that, we need to define what's real estate versus property, real versus personal property, and then figuring out who can have an interest or the actual right into the real estate. Okay? So, real estate as a property. Real estate as a property. There's different levels of real estate, right? But real estate, the word real estate is separated from land. If you guys notice, it's separated here. Because you can own land or you can own real estate. What is the difference? That's what we're going to define first. So a simple definition of real estate, is that it is air, water, land, and anything or everything attached to the land. Real estate in the United States may be owned. I have a mouse here. Okay, sorry. So real estate in the United States may be owned privately by individuals or private entities, right? Or publicly by government entities. Private ownership rights in the country are not absolute, but the government can impose certain taxes and restrictions, you guys already know, on private ownership rights. And it could take private property away altogether. In addition, other private parties can exert their interests on one's real property. A bank, for example, can take a property if the owner fails to pay a mortgage. This you guys already know. If you don't pay, they come after your property. A neighbor can claim the right to walk across a property whether the owner likes it or not, provided that he or she has done so for a number of years, or, as an example, in a shared driveway. Usually, if we have a shared driveway, you're not going to say, hey, walk on your side, right? It's a shared driveway, so people walk right through the driveway or drive right through it, right? You never say, please make sure you take 2 wheels off so you don't touch my part of it, right? You don't do that. So we have certain rights on other people's property sometimes. In attempting to define real estate, it is essential to understand what rights and interests parties have in a parcel of real estate. There's a difference between rights and interests. Now, and to understand real estate rights and interests, one must first recognize the distinctions between land and real estate and property, and the difference between real and personal property. So we're going to start with land. And guys, if you have questions, don't forget, put the question mark. Very important. Okay? Okay. So The legal concept of land encompasses the surface of the earth, everything beneath the surface of the earth, extending downward to its center, and all natural, this is land, all natural things permanently attached to the earth, right? The air above the surface to the earth of the earth extended outward to infinity and beyond. Right? So, land, therefore, includes minerals beneath the earth's surface, water on or below the earth's surface, and the air above the surface. In addition, land includes also plants attached to the ground or in the ground, such as trees and grass. And the parcel or tract of land is a portion of land delineated by boundaries. What are the physical characteristics of land? Very simple. There's three unique characteristics or physical characteristics of land. You can't move it, so immobility, right? It's indestructible, because for you to destroy land, you have to go all the way down to the core. Very, very difficult, right? Heterogeneity, which means it's unique. So land, again, cannot be moved. We can remove dirt. We can take dirt from one place to another, but that parcel of land stays where it's at, right there. This is my property. That's your property. Can we move them? No. So we can remove dirt, but we cannot move it. Land, again, it's indestructible because we have to go all the way to the core or up to infinity to remove it, so we cannot destroy it. And again, land is non-homogeneous, meaning that no two parcels of land are exactly the same. Mine is mine, yours is yours. And even though they might be on the same street, they might have the same size, right? Two properties could be 25 by 100, both of them, let's say. Right? What's the difference between this property? Actually, let me do here. Let's say this is 25 by 100, this is 25 by 100. What's the difference between these two properties? What is the difference? Can anybody tell me? Anybody? Uniqueness. Location. Absolutely. This corner property is going to most likely pay more in taxes than this one will. Value changes. This corner property is closer to the main road, let's say, so there's more traffic. This one's not. This one only facing this road right here. You guys understand? So even though it's the same 25 by 100, right? You could have the same type of house as usually they do, right? There's some type of conformity. We're going to learn this better in appraisals. But even though that happens, each property has its own unique location, therefore unique characteristics. It could be exactly the same in every single thing, but unique characteristics based on location. Okay? Very important. Actually, I'll leave that. Now, as far as real estate. As far as real estate, my first question to you guys is, ready? What does this mean, estate? What does this word mean? Can anybody tell me in the chat right now, what does this mean, as the word estate? And while you guys typing, I just want to let you know, please have the cameras on you. Not just on, but make sure that it's facing you, that you're fitting somewhere in between that little square. All right, so I can see that it's you, that it's there. Not just your top of your head or the lower bottom or the side. Make sure it's on you, please. The word estate. E-S-T-A-T-E. What does that mean? Ed wrote government. All right, so G-O-V would be state. Right, state. The word estate. Denise says areas of land. No. Again, there's no wrong answers. I'm just correcting as we go. Right? First day, you'll get a free pass. Right? Riley says land and or property. We're just talking about estate. So forget real estate. Right? Forget you're in this class. What does this word mean? And the reason why I'm asking you this, guys, if you're in an estate sale, if you're doing an estate sale, right? That means somebody unfortunately passed away and you're selling what? Why is it called estate sale? The word estate by itself. All right? And Tina wrote, everything you own. Right? Lula wrote, ownership. Exactly. So estate, the word estate with this E right here, means assets. Means something that I own, something that is mine. That's why when I die, right? I'll never die, but if I die, my heirs can sell everything that I have, right? And be very broke because I'm not leaving them anything. Anyway, so but that's what an estate sale is. It's to sell everything I have, from personal property, a car, a phone, a computer, to real property, which is real estate. See, real estate is real property that you own. So estate means asset. How do we figure out that real estate is property that you own? Very simple. Land is land, right? And when we're talking about land, we're talking about raw, unimproved, or undeveloped land. Land is land, right? But then if you start developing it, meaning you put pipes right through, right? The water pipes, the sewer pipe. Now you put the electricity into it. Now you paved it. You put a frame, and now it becomes a house. You have the garage. You have the pool. Will you do that on any property? Or will you do that in property that you own? A property that's your asset. Does that make sense? So land is how nature gave it to you. While real estate, you acquired the property for a purpose, to develop it. So land by itself is land. Land with improvements is real estate. So as soon as you see the difference is, yes, you can own land. Absolutely. I can own land and subdivide it later, right? But as soon as you see that there's man-made or human-made structures, like it was not nature that did it for you, like here is raw land, so nature gave it to you, right? As soon as you have, let's say you see paved, it's a parking lot, it's just land, it's a parking lot, but it was paved. Do you think nature went there and says, let there be pavement? Right? No, somebody did it. Will you do that on your neighbor's property? Will you go there and improve your neighbor's property, or just some random person? No. Usually we acquire and we build the structure with the purpose of either improving for ourselves or selling later on. So it becomes an asset that's tradable, sellable, and so on. Does this make sense, guys? Thumbs up if you got it. All right? Okay. So again, make sure if at any time you go like, Bruno, I did not understand, all right, drop the question mark and I'll explain, okay? So again, like Lula wrote, can you own land? You can. For developing later on if you want, or just keeping it. I own land in Texas and land in the Poconos, and it's just land there. It's just there, right? So I'm not doing anything with it. It's just land. Once I start improving the land, it becomes real estate. All right? So anytime you see some human touch to it, it becomes real estate. Till then, just raw land. All right, Lula, you have a question you're going to type or a question you want to speak? Speak? All right, it's more expensive if you want to speak. I'm just letting you know. We're going to charge you like $1 a minute. All right, so here you go. Do you agree to these charges? Go ahead. Oh, hold on. I can't hear you. I cannot hear you on my end. What happened here? Go.
So,
Yeah, you're on.
okay. So it says all man-made structures that are currently attached to the land. Say if you, so my question is you can attach certain things to land, but when you sell, do you have the right to remove some of those things, or do you have to sell? You have to, like, say if you do improvement,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you have the right to take some of your improvements with you?
Well, here's the cool thing about real estate. Just like everything else, I can choose what I want to include in the price or not. So can I say this is included, this is not included? Sure. We're going to talk more in detail about this in listings, but yeah, sure. Okay. All right. You already muted yourself. Okay, cool. So absolutely. Guys, everything is negotiable, right? I have here a phone. The phone comes with a cover. Do I have to sell you the cover? No. It wouldn't make sense for me to sell it to you without the cover, because what am I going to do? Buy an exact same phone? What's the purpose, right? Most real estate improvements are the same thing. It doesn't make sense for you to strip the property of those improvements. But can some stuff be removed, right? Would it be logical that some stuff is removed? Sure. You want to take a chandelier, that's something simple to be removed. Absolutely. Right? You want to take some bushes there that you planted, and those are like, I don't know, something that you're crazy about and you want to remove later on. Sure, why not? Fixtures. Yeah. Fixtures are anything that's attached to the land, was not part of it, but became attached. Like I said, a chandelier is a light fixture. It was attached to the land, but it doesn't belong to the walls. It's not something that belongs to it, right? So can it be removed? If you say you want to remove it, and if the buyer is okay with it, why not? If you say, hey, it was not included in the sales price, but if you really want it, we up the price. Sure, why not? That's the negotiation point. But can you? Yes. All right. Joel, can I be the owner of the land and sell the house that I make? Can you own the land and just sell the house? Is that what you're asking? And keep the land still? All right. So that one you might be able to keep certain rights to the land, right? But it's very difficult for you to sell the land, the house itself, and say, hey, I get to walk around your property every 2 seconds, right? Who's going to accept it? It's very difficult. If you're talking about leasing the ground, that usually happens in commercial. I can rent the land to you, and I can build on top for you, but you pay me that rental, that monthly rental fee forever. The building is yours. I sold it to you the way it is. It cost X amount of dollars, right? But you're renting the land and you pay me forever, right? So can you make some type of arrangement like that? Yes. We find this in residential, not so much. Okay? But anything is possible. Anything is possible as long as it's legal and both parties agree to it. Simple. Okay? So, back to real estate. Real estate, therefore, includes, in addition to land, such things as fences, streets, buildings, wells, sewers, sidewalks, and piers. Such man-made structures attached to land are called improvements. Okay? Why is it called an improvement? You guys need to remember this word for the future. Why is it called an improvement? Because we had raw land. Okay? Like nature intended. Nature gave it to you raw, bare. Imagine like when you were born, right? Over the years, right? You were born without clothes. Over the years, what do people do? Your parents start slapping you some clothes. We start with diapers, which is an improvement, so you don't, do what you need to do all over the place. They give you clothes. Then you grow and you start, as men, we start shaving. As women, we start doing like the makeup and stuff. We start improving ourselves. We start getting better. But when you were born as nature intended. So anything and everything that's added to raw land, okay, anything and everything that's added to raw land becomes an improvement. You guys understand? So this is very important because a lot of people think improvements is, you know what? I'm going to divide this wall and make it into 2 rooms. That's an improvement. I'm going to add a bathroom to this house that only has 1. I'm going to make it 2. That's an improvement. Yeah, it is an improvement to the structure, right? The structure itself is already an improvement to the land. Does that make sense? So there's two different types of improvements. Anything that's added to the land is an improvement. Anything that's added within your structure is an improvement. But if we're asking about the difference between, I see your questions, I'll address them in a second. But if we're asking, yes, it improves, not a question, a statement. It improves the value of the home as well. Yes, absolutely. So if they're asking you about real estate, if they're asking you about what is considered an improvement, or for tax purposes, what is an improvement? Again, anything that's added to the land is an improvement. We're not talking about a bathroom only. We're not talking about a roof only. We're talking about anything. So you're going to look in the question. You're going to look in the question or in the answers. You're going to look for one thing that's not considered an improvement. That was already there. There was already raw land, like trees, bushes, for instance. Does that make sense? These were already there, so they're not improvements. All right? So questions sometimes in the state exam are like, all of these are considered improvements except, or none of these are improvements except. So they do stuff like that. They give you 4 options. One of them is that exception. So none of these are improvements. So you're going to look for the one thing that's an improvement. And they'll put trees, rocks, lakes. These are not improvements. These are already there. And then all of a sudden it says a garage. Well, nature did not build a garage. So that's the improvement. Does that make sense? Thumbs up? Great, cool. There you go. The legal concept of land and real estate. So this is land by itself. Land by itself. So the center of the earth. This is our land. From the surface, right here, to the center of the earth, this is ours. Okay? And then the airspace to infinity and beyond. So whatever is above our property, technically, is ours. Real estate is the same thing we had before, right? It's the same thing here, exactly the same thing. But now we include stuff that we built. Simple. All right, so that's the simplest definition of real estate. Land plus man-made improvements. Now, in common understanding, property is something that is owned by someone. Property is something that is owned by someone. Like a car is the property of Bill Brown if Bill Brown owns the car. If the item is not owned, then it's not property. This is common sense, right? For example, if the car is abandoned and left to rust in the desert, then the car is no longer property because it was abandoned. And by the way, this is important. The abandoned means it's no longer yours, right? Since no one claims ownership. Similarly, the planet Jupiter is not property since no one owns it. All right, so there's something you own is yours. Something you do not own is not yours. Simple as that. Something you own is property. Something you do not own is not property. If you abandoned it, think about this. We're going to talk about it later more in detail. But if I drop $100 on the floor and I keep on walking and you show up and you see $100 on the floor, what do? Right? Unless you saw that it was me, right? You would not run after me and say, hey, Bruno, you dropped it, right? Unless you saw that it was me, right? Some people would actually not even, oh, I saw it fell from your pocket. I'm running the other way. So, but if I don't come back to say, hey, did anybody see my money? If I don't come back to say that, after a certain period of time, you have clearly abandoned your money. You understand? And money is your property. So the property is yours until you abandon. Okay? until you reject it, until you abandon it. Doesn't that involve government? In what sense? To abandon property? Have you guys not seen vacant property out there? Sometimes you drive and see vacant property. The government might not be involved. Maybe it was a foreclosure and nobody paid for it and they walked away. They're like, the property went to auction. They just walked away. Or some people during the big crisis that we had, they got so fed up with it, they said, you know what, I can't deal with this. I'm just going to leave, right? So not even foreclosed yet and it's already vacant, right? Or, again, like I said, we're going to talk about this in detail better later on, but, or when somebody dies, the heirs, like the children don't have a good relationship with parents. It happens all the time. Or that uncle that never had kids, never got married, and therefore you're the sole heir, right? But if you don't have that relationship, you won't know about it. If there's no will and an executor of the will, you will not know about it. And the land is just there, abandoned. Right? So there's several different ways why it would be abandoned, right? It could be government seizure, and then it's just there because nobody took care of it. By government seizure, meaning it was not maintained. So the government says, well, if you're not maintaining it, then you clearly abandoned it, and then they put a fine on you, and then they lock the windows, right? That's government taking action. Or the same scenario, and I say, nobody's maintaining this. Let me step in. Let me maintain the property. So again, if nobody shows up, they have abandoned it. And now it's just like the $100 is my property, right? We're going to talk about that later though. But it could be several different ways to consider abandoned property. Now, for a more technical standpoint, property is not only the item that is owned, but also a set of rights to be enjoyed by the owner. These rights are commonly known as bundle of rights. Bundle of rights. So what rights do we have? We have the right of possession. We have the right to use, the right of exclude, the right to transfer, and the right to encumber, right? So what do these rights mean? I have the right to take possession of a property that I just acquired. I can take possession. It's mine. I can use it in any legal manner. I can exclude people, like family members, like, no. I don't want you here, right? Friends, nope, I don't want you here. Or even strangers, exclude them from your property. It's yours. Those little four walls are yours, period. I have the right to transfer. That means I can sell, I can gift, I can exchange, I can do whatever I want. It's my property. And I have the right to encumber. What does that mean? It means I have the right to put something against it, like a lien, a mortgage, for instance, a second mortgage, a third mortgage, a fourth mortgage, construction against the property that I did not pay, and so on. So there's several rights that we have when we own property. In fact, that's what we purchased. We purchased rights, right? Because remember, you don't buy a one family or two family. You buy the rights to the land. If you're able to knock it down and make it a 10 family, 10 units, right? Why not? Okay. Tina, that's a great question. We have a chapter just for that. So if somebody doesn't pay the taxes, what happens? So when you get there, you're going to realize that if somebody doesn't pay the taxes, and I pay your taxes, I might be able to own your property. Yep, I can buy your property just by paying taxes. Yep. But I'll explain better when we get there. All right. Sorry, guys. Once in a while, we're going to hear sirens and all that stuff. It is Newark. Sorry. Constant, all day long. I love Newark. Can't get me out of here. All right, anyway. So, in owning property, one has the right to possess and use it as the law allows. Like I said, use it for any legal manner. You have the right to transfer, so you can sell, rent, donate, assign, a bequeath, which is put it in your will and leave it as a legacy. The owner also has the right to encumber. That means mortgaging as collateral. And finally, the right to exclude others. Okay? Classifications of property. We have something called real property. And we have something called personal property. What's the biggest difference between them? This. Can you move the house from one side to another? Can you put the house in your pocket and take it with you? No. So the biggest difference between real property and personal property is that personal property is movable. Personal property comes with you, right? Like a car. If you have a car, it's personal property, and hopefully it's movable as well, right? While real property, no, it's fixed, it's immobile. So let's look at this. Real property ownership is real estate and the bundle of rights associated with owning real estate. So real property is real estate. Personal property ownership is anything is not real estate, and the rights associated with owning personal property item. Items of personal property are also called chattels or personalty. Chattels or personalty. One easy way to remember chattels for personal property. Cattle. Now, why did I say cattle? Can anybody let me know in the chat real quick, what is the sound that cattle, not cats, cattle makes? What is the sound? Can you type it in the chat, please? I feel like those kids shows. Can you please type it? Right? You can do it. All right, here we go. Perfect. I never saw, unless back in the day we had the crazy cow thing. So yes, they would go moo and then LOL. They start laughing. They were crazy, right? Shanice, really? Meow. I said not the cat. Moo, right? So cattle or chattel, just to remember, cattle or chattel, because it's movable property. Okay? Movable property. So one way to remember chattel for personal property as a name is because it's movable. There you go. Meow. That was funny. Movable property. Now, tangible versus intangible property. Tangible property is something that you can hold on to. Intangible property is something that you theoretically own. Let's put it like that. So real and personal property may be further categorized as tangible or intangible. Tangible property is physical, visible, and material. Intangible property is abstract, meaning has no physical existence other than the evidence of the ownership interest. And you're probably wondering, what could be intangible, right? So let's start with tangible. Real property, all types of real property are tangible. You cannot own a fictitious house, right? You cannot own an abstract house. It exists, it's there, it's visible, I own it. So all types of real property are tangible. Personal property that's tangible, right, is a boat, a car, jewelry, your phone, tangible, you can hold on to, right? Very important. So let's figure out intangible. Again, as far as real property, there's no intangible real property. But as far as personal property, stock certificate. Now you have a paper, but the certificate says you own something. The paper is not what you own. It says you own something. And stock is abstract. Stock is not physical. It's not something you can see or touch. Does that make sense? So these are intangible properties, contracts, patents. You can have a patent to something. That something might be the tangible item, but the patent is not. Okay? The contract to a house. The contract is a document. The house is the tangible item. The contract to a car, and so on. So that's the difference between these. Tangible or intangible. Something that you can hold on to, or something that, you know, abstract. Something that you know it's there. Supposedly it's there for you. Like stocks, there's no guarantee that they'll be there. Just saying. I'm not a very big fan of stocks, so just saying. Not saying that you guys shouldn't do it. I personally if I'm not focused on it, if I don't understand it fully, right, I try to avoid it. That's the way I am. Once I have the time and dedication and all that stuff, I'll jump on board. Maybe I'll lose some opportunities as I lost some along the way, but I prefer to do what I know how to do, right? And that's why real estate, which is something that's tangible, and most of the times gives me the same returns or better than stock, with more guarantees than stock, right? That's what I like to focus on. So the next thing we have is real property rights. So real property rights consist of the bundle of rights associated with owning parcel of real estate. Foremost, those rights is the right of possession. Like I said, the right to take possession of the property. We already talked about the right to use the property, obviously in a legal manner. Can you buy a house and use it for something illegal? Technically, no. I mean, you can buy it, you can use it, but if you get caught, you're in trouble. That's what it is, right? The right to transfer, like I said, you can sell, you can bequeath, which is will it to somebody else. You can lease, donate, or assign the interest to somebody else. The right to encumber, we already went over this. It's the right to mortgage your property, to put a lien against the property. And I haven't used glasses in a while, so it's bothering me on my... sorry, so that's why I keep on going like this. Anyway, so right to exclude. You can keep people away from your property or out of your property. And here's what I want to stop for a second, because we haven't addressed this yet. The bundle of real property rights also applies separately to the individual components of real estate, like the air, the surface, and subsurface. So can we sell the air rights independently? Can we sell the subsurface rights independently, or even surface rights independently? The answer is yes, we can. For example, an owner can transfer subsurface rights without transferring the air rights. Similarly, the owner can rent the airspace without encumbering the surface or subsurface rights. And this might happen in the city where adjoining building owners want to construct a walkway over a third owner's lot. Such owners would have to acquire the air rights for the walkway, right? So your property is right here, and somebody created a walkway that goes right above your property. Can they just build something that crosses over your property? No, they have to buy the rights, or you have to allow that to happen above your property, right? Otherwise, imagine people would just, oh, I don't like this guy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to build an overpass so we don't have to cross this person's path ever again, right? No, you can't just do that. So you have to pay for those rights. If the city wants to construct a subway through the owner's subsurface, the city also has to obtain what's called subsurface rights. So the same thing over will be the same thing under. If they want to use a part of your property, then you are entitled to be rewarded for it. Because again, we own the property, right? From the surface, sorry, from the surface all the way down to the center of the earth and all the way up to infinity and beyond. So anybody that wants to operate underneath or above must pay for that right to do so, okay? Because it's your property. Now, subsurface rights is what I was just saying right now. Anything below the surface, or mineral rights, also called mineral rights. Anything above the surface is called air rights. So if you guys think about, no, but Lula, I'll explain that in a second, but no. But if you guys think about air rights or subsurface rights or any of these, well, let's look at air rights. So this is the surface right here. And then I have my building, which is like 10 units. And then let's say we're in New York. Here comes this person that wants to build 100 units. right? Can they build 100 units? Well, if the town says so, no problem. But what if I'm like, oh, you build 100, okay, then you know what? I'll build 150, right? Can this be done? As long as the town allows, yes. But what would be the benefit for this guy to build 100 units knowing that this one could build 150? What would be the benefit? So, what usually they do, this person will come to this person and say, listen, here's the thing. I'm building 100 units and I want to sell them for top dollar. So here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to pay you to not build anything above 100 feet, let's say. Anything above 100 feet is mine, and that's what I'm paying you for. I'm paying you right now $1 million for the rights to be 100 feet or above, so clear 100 feet or above. Why? Because I'm selling the views, right? I'm selling the views, the penthouse views. That's what I'm selling, is the views. You guys understand? That's what happens in New York. In New York, you find a big skyscraper, right? And then you have tiny buildings around. Why don't they build up? Because this guy, the skyscraper, paid this guy to stay down there. So I paid you $1 million, stay there. I went to the next one, $1 million, stay there. And I paid a bunch of people around. I purchased their air rights. And that's where New York becomes so expensive. Because they're selling these units for like $10 million. Just for everybody else to be down here. You guys understand? So air rights are sold independently. Okay? Now, Lulu's asking, can the city force you to sell those rights? Well, there is something called eminent domain. The city can only force something to happen if it's for the benefit of the city. And we'll talk about that also in a later chapter. And when I say benefit of the city, we're talking about the community. So if your property has something that will benefit everybody, right? Can the city force the sale of those rights? Yeah, eminent domain, right? So yes, I need something that's on your property. I'm going to cut your property in half, and this will benefit the community. I have to pay you for it, right? I cannot just, hey, I'm the city, so I have authority. Half of your property is gone. No. You guys understand? Okay. Now, surface rights and subsurface rights also include what's called water rights. Now, water rights basically concern the rights to own and use the water found in lakes, streams, rivers, and ocean. In addition, they determine where parcel boundaries can be affixed with respect to adjoining bodies of water. What water rights does an owner of a property that contains or adjoins a body of water enjoy? And the answers depend on several variables. Whether the state controls the water, whether the water is moving, and whether the water is navigable. See, if the state controls the water, that means that on the federal national survey says these waters belong to the state of New Jersey, or belong to the state of New York, or belong to whatever. So that is clearly stated that it's not your property. If your property is adjoined to a piece of water that is movable, then you're going to have something called, potentially called riparian rights. So there's a river, there's a stream or something. If the water is navigable, then yours. Not yours, if it's public. If it's not navigable, then it could be yours. All right, and that's what we're going to find over the next couple minutes. So we have something called doctrine of prior appropriation. See, since water is a resource that's necessary for survival, some states, particularly those where water is scarce, have taken the legal position that the state owns and controls all bodies of water, called doctrine of prior appropriation. It means it has to be distributed or appropriated for resources, right? So doctrine of prior appropriation says state owns water. Okay? When you see doctrine of prior appropriation, state owns water. Sorry for my handwriting. I will explain better. I'm a lefty. It's tablet. So horrible handwriting. All right, another lefty. There you go. All right, Tina has a question. That. For a second, I thought you threw the baby away. Like, oh, I need to type baby out. Question. That's what I saw. I don't know if you guys saw the same thing, but I saw it. All right, Tina. Does that mean like a home that it's on the water, for example, or a state owns that water? So if there's a home on the water, it's a floating house. I'm joking. By the water. By the I'm constantly messing with you guys, so don't take me anything serious, okay? The cool thing is that I make mistakes too, so pick on me. That it's cool, okay? So if the property's by the water, right? Actually, I'm sorry, I have to say this. You know what's funny about what you just asked? In the Dearborn edition, no, don't feel bad. In the Dearborn edition of this particular course, in the Dearborn book, there's a particular question that says a couple bought a property back in 1954, and they bought it on the ocean. And I'm like, even reading the question, everybody starts laughing. Like, if you buy it on the ocean, right, then it's a floating house, most likely. It's like on the ocean. Right, how many of these are we going to find? Unless we're like in Bora Bora or something like that, how many houses are we going to find? So I'm just messing with you. But even the pros that wrote the book make that mistake, which is totally fine. I don't care. As long as you pass, it's fine. All right. So your question is, if it's by the water, does it belong to you or belongs to the state? So again, based on the federal survey map, the federal will determine what belongs to the state or not. And then again, we're going to go over this right now. So that's called the doctrine of prior appropriation. State determines. And then it's determined by, your ownership is determined by whether you have littoral rights or riparian rights. So if it's by a lake, it starts with L, right? So lakes and seas, we're talking about water that does not move, right? It's standing water. So if it's standing water, does not move, it's called littoral rights, okay? If it's something that's moving, and I'll come back to it. If it's something that's moving or with a stream, it's called riparian rights, because riparian are for river. So something with a stream, with movement, it's called a riparian right. So depending on a few other items here that we're going to go over, you might have rights to the property. All right? So let's go back to littoral for a second. This is your property by the water. So this is your property by the water. And here we go. You see this line? Your property line ends by the high water mark. That's it. That's the lake or the ocean. There's something called tides, right? Up and down. This is the high water mark. This is the high tide. This is the max it will go. So you own property all the way here, but you do not own the water. Can you have certain rights in the water? Sure, you could. If it's not deemed federal, like some beaches, as we go along the coast, some beaches are federal, some are privately owned. So that's determined by whether it's navigable or not navigable. Again, if it's a navigable body of water, then it's public property owned by the state. If it's not navigable, meaning nothing can go through at that level, then it's owned by the private owner. When it comes to rivers, it's exactly the same thing. When it comes to rivers, okay, if it's navigable, right, this is navigable, then commercial boats, public boats can go through, right? If it's non-navigable, nothing can go through. If no commercial boats can go through, then you own the property all the way to the middle of the water. So this is property A and this is property B. We both own to the middle of the property. If it's navigable, just like the ocean, it ends where your property ends, right there. You get it? So how do we determine if it's ours or not? First of all, it was deemed already by the by the Federal Survey map. It's already deemed there. Second, these will be the qualifiers. Is it navigable or not navigable? Could you have rights to it or maybe not? Right? The cool thing, if it's navigable, again, your property goes all the way. If it's not navigable, it goes all the way to the middle. So you can park your jet ski over here, your boat, whatever you want. It's yours. Nobody can take it away. Right? Legally, take it away. Okay? Now, one's riparian rights, or river rights, or stream rights, to use flowing water are subject to conditions that the usage is reasonable and does not infringe on the riparian rights of other owners downstream, meaning you're not polluting the water. You're not causing anything that would damage the water or another person's property, right? So you're not doing something that would impede even the flow of the water. Like you cannot create your own dam and say, hey, sorry, sucks for you that you don't have water. We have plenty. We created a private pool, right? You cannot do that, right? You can do that on your property, but not on the water, even though until the middle of the stream is yours. All right? Real property versus personal property. So we talked about fixtures already before. That was one of the questions, right? And how do we differentiate what's a fixture that's owned by the property owner, fixture that's owned by a tenant, and fixtures that are owned for business purposes, okay? So the first thing I want you to remember, I'm going to repeat this a bunch of times later on, is that every time you see the word trade for trade fixtures, we're talking about business. Trade fixtures, we're talking about business. And why is this so important that you understand trade fixtures are about business? Because they might be removable. According to the terms of our leasing agreements, I need to install certain things in order for the business to be conducted. Like a barber shop, a salon, right? Restaurants, we install stuff, we remove stuff, right? I have a bunch of TVs around the office. I never installed the TVs with the intention of leaving it here. And the the building owner knows that I use these TVs for business purposes. So I installed with the intention of removing later. So again, every time you see trade fixtures, very important, these are the tools of the trade. They were installed for the purpose of conducting the business with the intention of removing later on. Again, I'm going to repeat this a bunch of times. I might become annoying at some times, just like the book is. All right, but the intention is to get you to pass. That's it. All right. So, in conveying real property, here's another thing you need to remember: the word conveying. In conveying real property, conveying means transfer. In conveying real property, that means in transferring real property. Right? And again, another word I'm going to constantly be repeating. In transferring real property, it is vitally important to recognize the distinctions between personal property and real property that is to be transferred or conveyed. Confusion can arise because items of property may be either personal property or real property depending on circumstances, right? Now, the primary criterion or criteria for distinguishing real from personal property is whether the item is permanently attached to the land. That's one of the keys. Is it permanently attached to the land? See, when I build the wall is permanently attached, right? The wall is part of the land, permanently attached, right? So a tree growing in your backyard is an item of real property. However, if I cut the tree, is the tree permanently attached? No, the tree was severed or cut. So now it's movable. And because it's movable, it is now personal property. Okay, so when we cut something that was part of it, we take it down, it becomes personal property. The opposite is also possible. Let's say I go to Home Depot or Lowe's or any hardware store and I buy a bunch of 2x4s, sheetrock, and a bunch of stuff to build a wall, right? When I bring it from the supermarket, from the hardware store, when I bring it, yeah, this is new. I don't know if in your area, your supermarkets have hardware stuff, right? My supermarkets where I buy stuff, they have sheetrock, they have paint, they have all that stuff. So, see, the difference between me and you is I catch myself before you guys do. I don't give you a chance to pick on me. Anyway, so you go to the hardware store and you buy all the material, they're going to give you a receipt. And that receipt is called a bill of sale and itemizes what's yours. From the hardware store to your location, it's personal property. You put it on the floor, it's personal property. You build a wall, it's now real property. Does that make sense? So you bought it, it was movable, personal property, right? You put it up, became fixed, permanently fixed, and part of the building, it's now real property. So these are the big differences of what's real or personal property. Now, while the attachment criteria is pivotal in distinguishing between real and personal property, there are other tests to be applied. In addition, the attachment rule is subject to exceptions. See, what do you mean it's not attached? Well, you just interrupted my flow. What do you mean it's not attached to the property? I just built a wall. Look, it's attached. Can't move it. It's attached. But it might not be attached yet. You're right. So let's say I didn't bolt it to the ground. All right. For instance, that's what I was going to go over here right now. A personal property item that has been converted to real property by attachment to real estate is called a fixture. Right? Fixture. What are fixtures? It's things that are attached to the building but could be removed from the building. Right? Things that are attached but could be removed. See, chandeliers, toilets, water pumps, septic tanks, window shutters, right? See, walls traditionally are to be permanently attached. We create the building, we put 4 walls around, right? It's permanently attached. It will not be removed. We can have movable structures within, but these are removable structures within, but these 4 walls, that's it, not being moved, right? Light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, elevators, appliances like AC. These are all things that could be removed. Kitchen cabinets can be removed, right? They're just attached, but easily removed. These are fixtures, okay? So fixtures. Faucets, those are plumbing. So fixtures, plumbing fixtures, absolutely. So in the event that the attachment criteria is insufficient to determine whether an article of property is real or personal property, a court may apply one or more of the following additional criteria. The intention. What was your intention when you installed that into the building? That's one of the questions. What was the intention? Was it intended to be permanent or was it intended to be removed? Again, for business, for trade purposes, I installed the TVs with the intention of removing later. What was the adaptation of the article? Meaning, if it's something that was uniquely adapted or personalized and there's no way to, like if you remove it, it's going to affect the structure itself, then obviously that adaptation was intended to be permanent. You understand? All right? There's more to this. Functionality, again, it could be removable, but how it's going to affect the operation of the building without it, right? All this stuff. Another thing is the relationship of the parties. So here's what we're looking at. Was it a tenant? Was it an owner? Was it to conduct business? These will all vary on the rights that you have or not have in the property. So the basic tests, you guys want to write down, the basic tests are pretty much defaulted to Maria. Okay? The basic tests are pretty much defaulted to Maria. These are the 4 tests, 1, 2, 3, 4 tests that define if it's a, by the way, I love acronyms, so you know. But these are the tests that define a property, a fixture, I'm sorry. So it's the method of attachment, it's the relationship of the parties, it's the intention of the party annexing the item, like why did you do this, right? And the adaptation or functionality of the attachment. So method, I'll translate. You don't have to go that deep into the screen. It's method of attachment. Method of attachment. Okay, method of attachment. Relationship of the parties. Intention of the party annexing the item, or adaptation of the articles. How did it adapt, the unique adaptness to the structure? So again, one more time. Method of attachment, relationship, intention, adaptation. So that's Maria. These are the 4 tests. These are the 4 tests of legal fixtures, or determining what is a legal fixture. 4 tests. Now, sale or lease contract provisions. Sale or leaseback provisions. I'm sorry, lease contract provisions. So in a lease or lease transaction, the listing of an item in a contract as personal item or fixture overrides all other considerations. So as you were asking me earlier, right, can we exclude certain things or can we include certain things? Sure. The contract will override anything else. So unless otherwise stated as exceptions, all fixtures usually are included in the sale. So unless we stipulate, no, not this, not that. Unless you stipulate clearly, and they're included. For example, if a sales contract stipulates that the carpeting is not included in the sale, it becomes personal property item. So if the carpeting is not mentioned, it goes with the property, since it is attached to the floor of the building. So again, can I say the wall-to-wall carpet belongs to me, the seller, and I'll take it with me? Sure. But I have to stipulate it that it's included or excluded. You guys understand? If nobody mentions anything, then usually it's excluded or included based on the assumptions of what you see is what you get. So again, it varies based on the relationship of the parties. Trade fixtures, look what I have here. Trade, business, boom. That's what you need to remember. Trade fixtures, businesses, right away. Trade fixtures, business. That's it, business. See, trade fixtures may be detached and removed before or upon the surrender of leased premises. Why is this so important to know as well? Because I own the space for business use until December 1st, right? Come December 2nd, if I did not remove everything or did not renew the lease, then they become property of the landlord by accession. So therefore, thereafter, that fixture, those TVs that I installed here, if we don't remove by the end of the lease, then those fixtures are considered real property. Any improvements are considered real property and now belong to the landlord. So can you improve your property where you live as a tenant right now? Sure you can. I appreciate it as a landlord. Go ahead, improve it. If it's a good improvement, yeah, all day long, do it. I'll take it. right? Lula, are there some things you can't take in a business? Well, you should be able to take everything that you installed in the business. You should be able to, that you installed, all right? Except if there's any, let's say if the lease already says, hey, you're going to do plumbing, you cannot touch the plumbing when you leave, right? Unless it says something like that. But technically, anything you installed, you should be able to remove, provided that you restore the property to the original condition, right? So you have to bring the property back to the way it was presented to you. So usually, yes, you can remove everything. Okay? Real property, so something I own as a landlord or owner of the property. Real property is land, fixtures, attachments, and conversions by affixing or attaching to the property. What is personal property? Trade fixtures for the business. Implements, that means something we install for crops, like for cultivating, for intended to be removed later, just like trade fixtures. Or conversions by severance, like cutting down the tree or removing bushes from the property. They become personal property. All right? Now, regulation of real property interest. Areas of regulation, federal, state, local, and judicial. This should be very quick because we have a lot of chapters we go in detail over this. See, the Constitution of the United States, gives you ultimate power in something that's yours. It is yours 100%, right? And it is yours subject to government powers. For instance, you can use the property for any legal manner. Anything that's illegal, you could be sanctioned. You understand? There's limitations. You can build whatever you want on the property subject to the building code. Why? Because it could affect your neighbor. Anything you do could affect your neighbor. Could affect the health and safety of your tenants, or even your health and safety. So even though you have full powers or maximum powers in your property or private ownership, they're subject to government control. Now, government entities, they regulate your bundle of rights, the legal description of the property, financing, insurance, inheritance, and even taxation of the property. Regulation takes the form of federal and state laws and regulations, county and local ordinances and codes, and court decisions in the judicial system. Federal regulation, right? It's primarily concerned, as I said right in the beginning of today's class, it's primarily concerned with the broad standards of real property usage, natural disasters, land description, and discrimination, right? So these are the federal laws, but they don't deal with your property specific. For instance, federal government does not levy real estate taxes. Federal government does not maintain your property or regulations of your property. They're more concerned with, again, the fair housing movement, meaning that everybody and anybody is entitled to buy a house or rent a house, regardless of their color, race, gender, national status, national origin, religion, or anything like that. So that's pretty much what federal government gets involved in. States, they get involved in regulating the business. So, for instance, us, the licensing, that's where states get involved, and also obviously charging state taxes on the personal level, not real property level. All right. Relevant laws, state laws include flood zones, waste disposal, drainage control, shore preservation, and pollution standards. So we're going to go over this also in a different chapter, which is environmental issues, right? They control that stuff because they want to make sure, again, the whole state is not affected because somebody decided to build a nuclear plant by the water, as an example. So that's where state get involved. Here's where we need to focus. even though the state has the power to levy real estate taxes, they've trickled that down to the local government, to your municipal governments. So county and local government regulations, they focus on the land use control, which is the control of improvements and taxation. Land use regulations and ordinances control how all property within the jurisdiction may be developed, improved, demolished, and managed. County and local governments have the power to zone land, take over land for public good, like eminent domain I said earlier, right? Issue building permits and establish rules for all development projects. County and local governments, along with school districts and other local jurisdictions, also have the power to levy real estate taxes. So local governments charge you with the taxes. This judicial system exerts an influence on real estate ownership and use through decisions based on case law and common law as distinguished from statutory law. Case law consists of decisions based on judicial precedent, while common law is a collective body of law deriving from custom and generally accepted practice in society, as I said earlier. Okay? So here you have a summary of how the laws are regulated. We just covered all this stuff. So federal, state, local, and then courts. Okay, this is how the powers are determined. It always starts with Constitution, then other federal laws, Constitution under state laws, and keeps on trickling down all the way down to local, municipal, and so on. All right? You guys have any questions so far? Question marks? No question marks? All right. I promise I won't mess with you guys if these questions are on the water. All right, guys. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick break before we get into chapter 3. It's going to be the final chapter, and then I'm going to let you go. These are all short chapters, just like almost like introduction into real estate, okay? So it is now 8:09. We'll be back at 8:15. 8:15. We're back, guys. See you in a bit.